Let's talk about Kim Davis again. I think I made a video about this a few months ago, and I'm probably going to repeat a lot of the stuff I said in that video, but why not? Maybe this is the last time we ever have to talk about her. But basically, Christian bigot Kim Davis was in the news this week, and for once, it was for a good reason. It's because the Supreme Court said, we're not taking up your case. We don't want to listen to you. Go away. We're not dealing with this. And they said that. Let me go back and explain to you what the hell she was even trying to do. Because while rejecting her case is a big deal, it doesn't really mean it's the end of the whole war they are trying to fight here. So basically, here is what happened with Kim Davis. Uh, Years ago, Kim Davis was a county clerk in Rowan County, Kentucky. And in 2015, this is after the Obergefell ruling, after marriage equality was legal nationwide, gay couples would come to her office and say, we want to get married, sign our certificate. And she's like, but I'm Christian, so no, go away. And it's like, it doesn't matter what your religion is. You're a clerk. Your job is to sign our wedding certificate. And she still said no. So one of those couples sued. They sued her. She basically had to pay up. She owed them about like $400,000, give or take, in punishment and legal fees by the time all this happened. And Liberty Counsel, the right-wing Christian legal group, they decided to represent Kim Davis. And for 10 years now, they have been fundraising constantly off of the idea that they are the only ones willing to defend Kim Davis, and they're taking this all the way to the Supreme Court. And one of the reasons Kim Davis is just plain funny is we got to have Kim Davis. There's Kim Davis. Let me remind you of this good Christian woman's marital history. This is a woman who, in chronological order, stay with me here, she married husband 1, she had twins with husband 3, divorced husband 1, married husband 2, divorced husband 2, married husband 3, divorced husband 3, then remarried husband 2, just like Jesus demanded. And this lady was like, you know what I care about? Sanctity of marriage. So how did she justify the obvious hypocrisy about the sanctity of marriage thing? She wrote in her book that God wasn't in the picture until husband two's mother died. And then they went back to church in 2011. So like anything she did before like 2011 doesn't count, you guys. And then she also said in her book that really it's kind of funny. It's a sort of divine irony because God is using her, this imperfect person who's been married a gazillion times, to defend marriage against the gays. So, in any case, just to run down her legal situation here, in 2022, a federal judge said she broke the law when she didn't sign those marriage licenses because she was a government worker. Who cares what your religious beliefs are? Do your job. You don't get to pick and choose which laws to follow. And a jury heard her case in 2023 to assess how much she owed. And they were like, yeah, we don't buy any of your defenses. So they said she owed the gay couple, David Ermold and David Moore, she owed them $100,000. Liberty Counsel said, you can't make her pay any of this out. She works for the government. She's like a cop. She has qualified immunity. You're not allowed to sue her. And the jury's like, no, they can sue her. She owes them. Liberty Counsel appealed that decision, and it didn't work. Like the appellate court said, yeah, no, what the earlier people said is fine. She was breaking the law. Over the summer, Liberty Counsel said, well, we're going to ask the Supreme Court to step in. And that's fine. Anyone can ask the Supreme Court to look at a case. But what they were asking for, and this is where it got scary, they weren't just asking the Supreme Court to overrule the earlier decisions. They said Kim Davis has a First Amendment right to the free exercise of religion, so you can't sue her for denying those marriage licenses. But that wasn't the issue. In fact, the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals, they were like, that makes no sense. That's not how the country works. For example, and this is what they wrote, a county clerk who finds interracial marriage sinful could refuse to issue licenses to interracial couples. An election official who believes women should not vote could refuse to count ballots cast by females. A zoning official personally opposed to Christianity could refuse to permit the construction of a church. All of these officials would have wielded state power to violate constitutional rights, but they would have followed their conscience. That's not how the Constitution works. And when those two things are against each other, are in opposition, her conscience, they said, must yield to the Constitution. That's what the Sixth Circuit said. Liberty Counsel's like, nah, we're going to ask the Supreme Court to overturn it. And furthermore, what the Supreme Court was asked by Liberty Counsel was not just to undo the decisions against Kim Davis. They said, you need to go ahead and overturn marriage equality across the country, because they said it is grounded entirely on the legal fiction of substantive due process, which is their way of saying the Constitution never said gay people are allowed to get married. And just like the justices said there's no right to an abortion in the Constitution, the justices should say there's no right to marriage equality in the Constitution. So that was their argument to the Supreme Court. And this is what happened this week. I will show you this. This is the list of the Supreme Court's decisions. I'll come back to that in a second, but you could see this is just a list of cases. They just decided we're not going to listen to these. For whatever reason, we don't have any reason to take these up. And then on this page right here you have it. Docket number 25125. Kim Davis versus David Ermold, etc. Forget the first line, it's unimportant, but it says right here, the petition for a writ is denied, which is fancy speak for we're not going to listen to this one. And that was the end of it. Like, Kim Davis's case will not be heard, and this is what the headlines were afterwards. Supreme Court rejects challenge to legalization of same-sex marriage. I appreciated this from the BBC summary of this. The Rowan County clerk was ultimately ordered to pay $360,000 in damages and serve 6 days in jail for contempt of court. The Sixth Circuit also ruled against her. In her appeal, Davis's legal team argued same-sex marriage was grounded in a legal fiction. What did they say on Monday? After the Supreme Court rejected the case, Matt Staver of Liberty Counsel said his client now faces crippling monetary damages based on nothing more than purported hurt feelings. Everyone shed a single tear for Kim Davis, who has spent the past decade trying to destroy same-sex marriage. And the woman who cannot be married herself for any long time is like, I see these happy gay couples and I want it to stop. And apparently, again, she now faces crippling monetary damages. You know what, Liberty Counsel? You've fundraised so much money using her name. Why don't you pay it all off? These people are just the worst. All of them. The other thing I want to point out, and this is from Right Wing Watch right here, Matt Staver also wrote this. I have no doubt that Kim Davis's resolve will serve as a catalyst to raise up many more challenges to the wrongly decided Obergefell opinion. He said his group will continue working with state legislators and individuals to overturn Obergefell and to return the issue of marriage to the states. The Christian right is not done trying to overturn Obergefell, but it looks like Kim Davis, the case that she brought to them was so egregiously easy to decide that the Supreme Court's like, you cannot possibly make us argue that every court who has heard this was wrong. Like, this is not one of those controversial cases. Even if the Supreme Court really wants to overturn marriage equality, they're not using Kim Davis's case as the vehicle to do it, which is, again, wonderful, wonderful news for now. But again, Christians are going to keep trying to do this, and that's disappointing. I will say, one of the things that struck me when I was talking about this story, looking it up earlier, is how little we have seen of Kim Davis in the past 10 years. And I don't necessarily want to, I don't know why that is. I know that when she was first in the news about a decade ago, a lot of people made fun of her, fun of her looks, fun of her hair, fun of her 97 marriages. And I'm sure that wasn't easy to take, despite being a public figure. But whatever, she's a bigot and she was doing something horribly wrong. So, you know what? I don't really feel bad about that. But it is striking to me that Matt Staver's the guy speaking out after this Supreme Court's ruling, and not Kim Davis. I haven't seen her in the news very much at all. And I am kind of wondering what her next steps are after she pays this thing off. Like, does she just disappear? Does she go find husband number 5? What does she do at this point? How she's going to try to find a way to market this somehow. Is she going to go on a speaking tour? I don't know. But at least for once, the Supreme Court gave us good news by saying, we're not listening to this lady. We're not taking up her case. Give us another one. Maybe then we'll consider it. And somehow that passes for good news. When the Supreme Court says we're not listening to a case, that is good news lately. All right, I will stop there. What questions we got? Kim could cold call some churches. Hey, church, I need some money. Can you all help me out? And they'll be like, are you a member? And she'll say, what? No. Yeah, it's a great idea. I just don't understand what drives them. It doesn't interfere with their laws in any way, but they're so preoccupied with the thought of same-sex marriage. Yeah, I mean, it's a fair argument that people have been making forever. How does a gay couple getting married affect your marriage? Like, if it does, if you think it cheapens your marriage, maybe you should talk to your spouse about that one and not blame the world for making you think, oh, marriage doesn't mean anything anymore now that other people are allowed to do it. I mean, it's been the same argument forever because they don't have a response to that one. But they're not stopping. They really, it boggles my mind that these people like to pretend they are the arbiters of morality, that they're the ones trying to defend morality, and yet everything you will ever see in the news about Christians, it's never about, look at all these Christians who help the poor. It's always, we got to cover up Trump. We got to cover up for Trump because, he was in the Epstein files and we don't want people being mad at us about that. So let's pretend that's a conspiracy. That's what they do all the time. There needs to be more punishments for parties bringing up all these frivolous court cases we are seeing today. Yeah, there's a lot. I mean, there's a lot of legal groups that will defend someone like Kim Davis for free, so she doesn't have to pay them for being her lawyers. And that's not necessarily an issue, but they're just using her to get at something bigger. A lot of lawsuits are using random people to try to get a outcome that they want. It's not, and that's a legal strategy. Make of that what you will. But she's been at this for 10 years. And at this point, you have to wonder, like, what does that do to the gay couple that just wanted to move on with their lives 10 years ago? And they've been dragged into this for 10 years. I don't know what the punishment should be. I don't know what counts as going too far. But I feel like a $360,000 payment, that doesn't feel like enough. Especially since most of that's to their lawyers. I lost a bet with Godless Granny over this. I thought SCOTUS would say, hold our beer. I will say a lot of legal scholars I listened to were pretty sure there's no way the Supreme Court was going to take this up, only because this case is dumb. There might be another case they take where they will reverse Obergefell, but not this one. Not a good test case.